This is HBR News number 427. Jada and Will, Dylan Mulvaney, Woman of the Year, where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian Martinez, and I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts, Hannah Wallen, Dr. Randbergham, and Mike J. I'll try to change the order of the others so that nobody thinks there's a hierarchy going on, because there isn't. This is true equality right here. This is true equality. So
I honestly never noticed the order of
I'm always changing it. I don't make it conscious, but I try to start different, and then I just see where everything else lands. So,
would that be the order of badgerations?
I don't know. Maybe the folks in the chat can create a HBR News tier list, and but I don't want to see it because I know where I'm going to fall, and it's not pretty. But
I mean, surely it's always going to be Hannah and the two Mikes, or the two Mikes and Hannah.
Yeah.
You don't want to say Mike and Hannah and Mike. That's just ergonomically unsound. For heaven's sake.
Yeah. Unless you're,
It sounds like a sandwich.
Unless you're David Lynch, and you just want to throw people off. You don't have to just say Mike without adding any other context, and then see what happens. But anyway, so on this week's news show, we got it's going to be kind of a short show. I just dropped my mother-in-law off at the airport today, and so I didn't really do a whole lot of work because I was kind of focused on entertaining her and spending time with her and Lindsay, who also got a week off. But I did put together some stories, and I hope you guys will participate in the discussion around those stories, both in the comment section as well as the live chat, which is right there. So on this week's news show, we're going to be talking about some revelations that maybe you won't even find that shocking regarding Jada Pinkett and Will Smith. Congressman Jamal Bowman, who's I guess he's got the nickname Fire Alarm, and the stunt that he pulled and the sort of consequences of that. Dylan Mulvaney has been made Woman of the Year, and more. So stick around; it's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So on this week's patron-only show, I went over to our friends over at The Guardian because they're always good for some cringe. And they have an article. This is very recent. This is literally today. And these are the hot, important topics we need to discuss by Zoe Williams. What keeps couples warm in winter? The battle over the thermostat. The UK has suddenly gone from summer heat to shivering cold, and across the land, the annual arguments have begun. So, of course, we're back on sexist air conditioning. So, maybe. I haven't read this yet, but I have a feeling, it being The Guardian and this being a woman, and this is an opinion piece about the temperature. I'm just saying, I'm just spitballing here. I hate to be prejudgmental, but I have a feeling that it's going to be about sexism and air temperature. So,
surely we should just embrace the cold, because it's not going to be around for long because of climate change.
Yeah, right. Let's enjoy it while it lasts, because everything is gonna, I don't know, whatever supposedly happens. I guess the Earth just combusts. I'm not really sure. So anyway, if you want to join us on the Patreon-only show, you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, and you'll be able to watch all of the content in the same way that you're doing right now, and also thousands of other hours of content, not all necessarily of the same quality, but if you like to hear us spurg out in the after show, then please do that. Go to feedthebadger.com and start up a monthly subscription. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we have been yeeted from the internet, then go to honeybadgerradio.com, or I think it's badgerfeed.com, and you will be able to watch all of the content where it now lives. So anyway, with all of that out of the way, let me bring up the stories, and we're going to get into the first one. We're going to talk about Will and Jada. So I know that well, you know what? Let's get into the story first. Let's do that first. So let me switch over to that screen, and here we go. So Jada Pinkett Smith, pictured here, has revealed that she and her husband Will Smith have been living completely separate lives since 2016. In a clip from her forthcoming NBC News primetime special with Hoda Kotb, Plinkett Smith said the couple had not previously gone public with their separation because they were not, quote, ready yet, end quote. They were, quote, still trying to figure out between the two of us how to be in partnership, end quote, she said. How do we present that to people, she told Kotb. We hadn't figured that out. Pinkett Smith, 52, and Will Smith, 55, have been married since 1997. Pinkett Smith said that they are not legally divorced. Their marriage has come under scrutiny during the period she says that they have been apart. In July of 2020, singer August Alsina revealed that he had been romantically involved with Plinkett Smith. We call that an entanglement. I don't know if you guys know. Something she confirmed during an episode with her husband on Red Table Talk. You guys might remember that experience. I got into an entanglement with August, Pinkett Smith said at the time, explaining then that the superstar couple, quote, were going through a very difficult time, end quote, when it occurred. Then there was the Oscars slap. During the 2022 Academy Awards, Smith stormed the stage and slapped presenter Chris Rock after he made a joke about Plinkett Smith being bald. She suffers from alopecia, which has caused her hair loss. Remember, this is 2022, and they have been separated since 2016. This is important detail, okay? Since then, Will Smith has responded, saying in an email to the New York Times, the book's revelations kind of woke him up. He said that Pinkett Smith was more, quote, resilient, clever, and compassionate than he had understood, end quote, and had lived a life on the edge more than he'd realized. Quote, when you've been with someone for more than half of your life, a sort of emotional blindness sets in, end quote, Will Smith wrote, according to the Times article published Saturday. Quote, and you can all too easily lose your sensitivity to their hidden nuances and subtle beauties, end quote.
Oh, it's a good thing I already threw up this morning. All right, so the story of far too many modern marriages, basically 19 years of coping and 7 years of seething. Or possibly the other way around. It's sort of hard to tell when neither of you can be honest about anything. All right, so let's go over these quotes again. Apparently Jada's new book, quote, woke him up. Interesting choice of verb there. So he's now woke regarding Jada and how she's much more, quote, resilient, clever, and compassionate than he'd understood. Okay, good. If she's so resilient, then you won't be performing any more publicity stunts whenever anyone temporarily has her name in their fucking mouth. As for compassion, I think you might be confusing it with passion. Adultery is not a particularly compassionate thing to do, especially not ongoing, unapologetic adultery in which you indulge while your husband is very obviously in some acute emotional distress and seems only interested in taking it out on everyone except you. When you can commit a pattern of abuse on someone and all they do in response is abuse other people, it's a pretty sweet deal. If and only if you are wholly psychologically unburdened at the thought of the cyclical tentacles of abusive behavior that all originate with you and your dispassionate selfishness. As for clever, well, she's probably cleverer than you. Well, she's probably more savvy than you with regard to what women can be like and what they can get away with. But that's not saying much, especially when it comes to Hollywood, where people are only clever enough to make their millions and then they very much reach a plateau. So this other quote, when you've been with someone for more than half of your life, a sort of emotional blindness sets in, and you can all too easily lose your sensitivity to their hidden nuances and subtle beauties, end quote. Now, that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to be the opposite of the truth, by and large. The more time you spend with someone, the more acquainted you become with their mannerisms and the subtle indicators of their, inner workings or whatever. Even an absolute autist can, with enough time and exposure, figure out the sort of the sensory cues of how a person ticks. If your wife only seems to become more distant over the years, especially with regard to what you call hidden nuances, then it's very probably because she's making an effort to keep them hidden. That is, until she can't be bothered anymore and she just straight up admits that she's cucking you. Because after all, there's nothing you can do about it, other than perhaps getting a divorce. Now here's another quote, this time from Jada. Quote, "I made a promise that there will never be a reason for us to get a divorce. We will work through whatever. And I just haven't been able to break that promise." End quote. If this is what you're calling one of her subtle beauties, well, she promised to be loyal and faithful in sickness and in health till death do us part, but she doesn't have to keep that promise. Heavens to Albuquerque, no. But still, she can't break her promise to stay married to you because there will never be a reason to get a divorce. No matter how much she cucks you, no matter how much she humiliates you, no matter how much she abuses you, none of this counts as a reason to get a divorce. She can do whatever she likes, Will, and none of it is wrong and none of it is her fault. Funnily enough, Will, you might be better off not getting a divorce because the divorce is where you lose not just 100% of your dignity, but 50% of everything you own. The family courts aren't going to give a shit that she's a whore. You're a man, she's a woman. That means you're guilty and she's a victim. So you may think your best option is to keep your head down for the rest of your life and, hey, maybe even find another partner, another woman who really is willing to commit to you, someone you can trust for the rest of your life. Do you suppose Jada would be okay with that? Yeah, no, this is how it works. She can go ahead and fuck anything that moves and you just have to deal with it. But if you even glance in the general direction of another woman, all hell breaks loose and you get divorce papers hand-delivered to you by the very next morning, and you won't have a leg to stand on because you're a filthy adulterer and she's just a poor, innocent, resilient, clever, and compassionate woman with hidden nuances and subtle beauties. This is what feminists want from men. They want to fuck you over and give you no option but to spend the rest of your life lonely and cucked and suicidal. They want to be the first, last, and only thing you ever touch or love or look at. And if they could do it to Will Smith, they could do it to anyone who hasn't wised up to this bullshit. It's a story all about how your life got flipped turned upside down. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can stay in West Philadelphia and perhaps use a different basketball court next time. That is all. Holmes, smell you later.
Hey, Hannah, do you have anything to say?
Oh yeah, just go ahead and get married, guys. It's totally safe, right? Because we're seeing that all over social media now. The right has discovered the MGTOW movement, and they are very upset, and they just can't understand why a guy might want to just back off from this particular arrangement.
I mean, if they just pray together, it'll be fine. Like Jada Pinkett is on her knees right here for Tupac. So I mean, yeah, just that's how.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. You totally have control over whether she prays with you, right? Right? Oh wait, no, because telling a woman what to do is misogyny in our society. You have been taught from early childhood that women can do anything they want and you are not allowed to expect any control over it, right? Even things they do to you. So there goes that idea. And it's, just vet them for character. That's what you need to do, is marry a woman of good character. But wait a minute, because presuming a woman to not be of good character is misogyny. Right? If woman is not perfect and you notice that she's not perfect, you hate women. It's not the fact that you figure if she's fucking every guy that you know that she might screw around with you or on you after the marriage, right? No. You're a misogynist. You're slut shaming her. You're not worried that after 50 different guys you might be exposing yourself to an STI by sleeping with that one. No, you're just a misogynist. You hate women, right? And the fact that she is always broke, despite having a job and 2 other boyfriends. The fact that she is always borrowing money from somebody and maybe already has a credit card by the time she's 17 years old. That doesn't mean she's irresponsible. You just hate women. You're a misogynist. She's not going to get you into debt. It's all independent after you get married and everything. She can have her own credit. You can have your own credit, right? Oh, no. What's hers is hers and what's yours is hers. But totally, guys, get married like right now because the right says so. Well, I know that we get people that say that we're not down on the right, but this is one where I kind of butt heads with all the people that I grew up with.
Absolutely.
All the people that I grew up with. Because everybody that will tell you to get married will tell you reasons based on experiences within a church family environment, a conservative environment, a traditional environment. All things that you're not allowed to expect now. All things that are not protected under law. All things that are not part of your contract, right? When you get married, you sign a contract promising to be your half of the relationship, promising to put your half of the marital property up against her loyalty and her respect for your relationship, her love for you, her consideration for you. She verbalizes promises, but under the law, she promises you nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
So, like, when we hear from, I can't think of the Daily Wire guy that I keep
Daily
saying
Wire.
he looks like, what's his name?
Jeremy Boring, Ben Shapiro,
No,
Matt Walsh.
Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro has gone off on MGTOW.
Yeah.
Dude doesn't know what he's talking about.
Of course
he
not.
knows
No.
nothing.
No.
Don't listen to him. Don't care what he has to say.
Not about that.
Like he's coming from an entirely different place than the experience a guy has today looking for a relationship. And am I saying that it's hopeless? No. But what I am telling you is, don't listen to people who say you can't vet for character. If a woman calls you a misogynist for vetting her for character, she has just proved to you that she's not good enough, right? Walk away from that. And don't let the women among your friends and family talk you into changing your mind on that. Okay? And the last bit is, don't be pressured in anything. Don't get married because people say you should. Don't get married because you think somebody's going to run out on you if you don't do that this year or next year. Right? Don't settle because people told you to settle down. Have high standards. Don't even consider marriage with a woman if you wouldn't get into a business relationship with her, because you are, and she's not held to it. So she's got to be better than ethical. She's got to be better than moral. She's got to be somebody that you can trust, even though you have no legal recourse if she betrays you. And if you decide that that's too much, don't do it. Don't let somebody tell you that you have to get married.
Yep.
You can find somebody. You can do all of that work if you maintain that standard. If you refuse to settle, it's not going to happen next week. You might have to be engaged for 3 or 4 years once you get settled down to deciding. But, you don't have to.
Yep.
There's no reason why you do.
Yep. Mike J, you want to say something?
My biggest takeaway on this is don't marry Jada Pinkett Smith.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, you know what? It's actually kind of telling that she insisted that her name be hyphenated. And that Will's was not. Isn't that interesting? So I think that if a woman wants her name hyphenated, you should see it at least as a pink flag. I know that some people would say that this, but I'm saying like there's like something that's missing there. It's like they're holding on to something, and they think it's their name, but it's really their father's name. So, I mean, you're not really like, you're not smashing patriarchy by keeping your last name because you have your father's name. And if you think that that's also not true, then you have your grandfather's name. There's a man in there at some point. So there's no escaping that. But, I'm sorry, Mike J. Do you want to say anything else, or is that?
Oh, no, that was
probably
basically.
Yeah. I'll say that I agree with everything Hannah says. I've said this many times. I've been reading this book by Rachel Wilson called Occult Feminism, and it goes into like the occult history of feminism going way back, like before Mary Wollstonecraft and stuff. Very interesting book. I'm Rachel Wilson, the author of that book. I'm in talks with her to have her on for a 5-star chat, but she's not going to be able to make it on until November. I'm pretty interested in talking about this. And I've also talked to Teal Deer about this. And what this kind of solidifies for me is what's going on with the Daily Wire in particular. Because she's been fighting with Pearl a lot. And Steven Crowder has also been fighting with them. And I want to give too much away, but if you've been watching him, you know that Steven Crowder has been moving more and more towards like the men's rights position. And I think that his recent divorce with his wife, Hillary, is sort of like, what is a part of what's pushing him in that direction. So I'm glad for that. So I think that the Daily Wire is not necessarily indicative of what we call the right. But I will say, I think they're mostly there. But I will say this. Based on what I've read in that book and conversation with Teal Deer and the content that he and I have collaborated on this channel, I am convinced, and I've said this before, that our entire society is feminist. There is no wing of politics, no party, nowhere in the world that isn't feminist to some degree, to some extent. So even people like Andrew Klavan, who claims to be anti-feminist, is not anti-feminist. He is at least a second-wave feminist, which is basically awful. It really is. And this is the reason they believe this. It's ingrained in our culture. It's everywhere. There is no, to be non-feminist is almost, it's a unicorn. This channel here is one of the few places that's actually non-feminist, right? Or anti-feminist, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's because most of us were born into this mindset already. And it's not, you don't escape it from becoming Christian. You don't escape it that way because, especially in Protestantism, feminism is a big part of it already. So it's basically infected everything in the West and even around the world before we were born. So this is serious deprogramming we got to do. So in that regard, I think that, the guys at the Daily Wire that think that they know what they're talking about when it comes to men and women, they don't. They may have lucked out, and I say may because they could still get divorced. Like I said, Crowder was convinced that the woman he married, he was going to stay with forever. He saved himself sexually for her. He got married to her. He had children with her. He had twins, in fact, and he got a divorce. And you would have thought that wouldn't have, I've known guys who have gotten married, and I thought I could never see them divorce. They were like best friends getting a divorce. And the woman, of course, ends up, initiating it. She's bored. She wants to be adventurous. She's fucking other dudes, whatever it is. And they'll lawyer up behind them and everything. And is this necessarily a statement on women's nature? Yes and no, because I think that our system enables it. And so we encourage this behavior. And so some women are going to take it up. They're going to be like, well, I got all this stuff I can do. Why don't I do it? That's why Jada will be like, you know what? I want to fuck this guy over here. Because she didn't get Tupac, which is who she really wanted. Will married her anyway. Tried to be a substitute. It didn't work. Tupac, died or whatever. And she's never basically been satisfied. You can tell. She's just not happy. I don't blame Will for that. I think it's a Jada problem. But at the same time, like Paul Elam always says, there are no victims, only volunteers. If Will Smith knew that she was like this, I know that he's been through his own shit as a child. He has to get out of there. He has to stop making excuses for her. He went basically, based on what we just learned, Will Smith went on stage, made a scene, and slapped Chris Rock over a woman he wasn't even with. Why did he even show up to the Oscars with her? Did he feel like they had to keep up appearances? I assume so. But dude, grab take hold of your balls and don't do that. You basically, slapped Chris Rock for nothing. You didn't, like, it was less than nothing. That was over already.
It made it obvious whose appearance he was keeping up.
Yeah, he was keeping up hers. He was defending her honor. Why? She was having sex with other dudes, and she was separated from you. And she's probably the one turning your son into a woman. I mean, it's just, there's a chart. It was like, who's the most evil? And I think it was like Amber Heard. I don't know. There was a couple of other ladies. I can't remember them all. And like Jada Pinkett. And I was like, I think it's Jada. Like, I mean, she's like the Wicked Witch from, the Snow White movie, like but it's her behavior. So but at the same time, I know that Will's been through some shit, but dude, man, I don't have that much pity for you. Like, you have to stop simping. The simping has to end. So those are my thoughts. I think that, obviously the Daily Wire folks on Twitter talking about what men need to do, they don't know what they're talking about. Even people that I tend to like even more, like Lauren Chen, she's got a blind spot. She doesn't understand that men, they always put the onus on men, right? Like, oh, people aren't forming families. Men, why aren't you stepping up? What about what women should be doing? Like, maybe that's the problem. Maybe women have a problem. Maybe they're the ones. But it's like nobody wants to criticize them. Nobody wants to hold them to a standard. And that includes conservatives. And the reason is because they are still feminists. This is the thing I've been trying to communicate. They are literally not conservative. They are feminist. They're just behind the other feminists. That's it. It's like J.K. Rowling. People were talking about how they were giving all this praise to J.K. Rowling because she was standing up for, women and like fighting against the trans lobby. And I'm like, yeah, but J.K. Rowling created the trans lobby. She was all of these regular feminists, supposedly second wave feminists, supposedly third wave non-intersectional feminists. They're the ones that created the intersectional nightmare. They made that. So we have to tell them, you did this. You have to untangle this shit. I'm sorry, J.K. Rowling. I'm sorry, Anna Kasparian. You brought this on yourself. You don't get to then go around, and that's what they're doing. They're going to turn around and say this is, trans women in women's bathrooms is patriarchy. No, it's not. It's feminism. You did this. I didn't do this. I think those people are, they have problems and they need help. And, what you did isn't helping them. It's like anybody with a weird identity crisis. So anyway, that's my main thing. Will Smith, on some level, you are not a victim of this. You are a volunteer. You chose this. You knew what she was about. In fact, you had to know it better than most of us because you're around her all the time. Jada's obviously a demonic woman, and I've always said that, and I think that she should be avoided by the plague, like Mike J said. Don't marry Jada Pinkett at all, even if she decides not to hyphenate. And yeah, like all, everybody, our society is feminist. That it just is. There's no non-feminist part except for maybe here and Paul Elam and a couple of others. That's it. I would say even a lot of the guys in the Red Man group and the Red Pill Manosphere, they're also feminists to some degree. Like they're gynocentric at least. So
yeah, that's the thing. You have to watch out for.
Yeah.
There will be people who will tell you they are non-feminist or anti-feminist, but then when you start talking to them, they still want preferential treatment for women, even if they do not believe the feminist narrative, which goes all the way back to the beginning of feminism, that throughout history men have oppressed women by excluding them from power, which isn't possible, by the way, because women have the power of influence. Women have the power of dealing with society's gynocentrism, and women that is women's power. When women use it in particular to gain things by telling people, well, it's in women's best interest. It's more powerful than being able to vote, than being in a position of authority and responsibility, than being part of the military. It's the most power. So to be excluded, it's bullshit to say we were excluded. But that's feminism. Feminism is the victim narrative that women were at some point excluded from power, dominated by men, and oppressed by men. But and people will say, well, if you don't believe that, you're okay. Not if you believe ladies first. Ladies first has to die for equality.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. We're going to move on to the next story. And I got a super chow from Meredith G, who gives us $5 and says, HBR News number 427, I came in late to the show. What we are seeing with Will and Jada is an abusive dynamic with Jada as the abuser. Will Smith grew up with an abusive father whose sisters protected him, so he was primed for a narcissistic sociopath like his wife, and Will is never going to leave Jada because he is addicted to her. I think that might be true, but somebody should step in and help him. Maybe Chris Rock. maybe, because I think they were friends before. I mean, I don't know if maybe they still are. You know, maybe they put that aside. I don't know. But yeah, like he needs bros. You know, I think that's the thing too, is that like men need other men to protect them from this kind of thing. And of course, feminists have broken that too, right? They've broken men's connections with other men, especially friends that look out for them so that these things don't happen. You know, because sometimes you need a dude, like a boy, to like step in and say, hey man, you know, this girl, I don't think she's good for you. Blah, 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 right? So, I don't know. Anyway, let us know what... Oh, Hannah, were you going to say something to that?
No, that's it.
Oh, okay. All right. So I got a super chat from Miles Kinslow for $10. Thank you, Miles. And it says, hey guys, I remember when Will and Jada was the it black couple. Yes. Such a shame. I hope the children make it out okay. Can't imagine seeing your parents' dirty laundry displayed for the public. Well, that's true. That is a shame. I hope that it doesn't traumatize them too much, because I think it probably can be, you know, to see like your parents' dirty laundry out there, and I mean, it's probably their relationship's probably dysfunctional, and the kids see it, and they're probably gonna get involved with dysfunctional relationships as well. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Have you
seen Willow and Jaden?
Well, but I thought maybe I haven't seen
Trey
Willow
Smith?
lately, but...
Oh, wait, nobody's heard of Trey Smith, because he's the normal one.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't know who that is.
Exactly, that's their third child.
Yeah. All right.
I think the damage is already done there, man.
Yeah, I don't...
Like, why would any Hollywood parent, like, let their child anywhere near Hollywood when everyone knows what happens to child stars in Hollywood?
Yeah, really, I know. It's crazy. All right, anyway, we're gonna move on to the next story, so let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Okay, this one was put in by Hannah. I'm gonna go ahead and read it, and then like Hannah can give her thoughts if she wishes. So the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, which is short for FACT, or long for FACT? It's long for FACT, has conducted an investigation into New York Congressman Jamal Bowman's actions when he pulled a fire alarm just before a crucial vote to avoid a government shutdown. FACT determined that Bowman violated congressional ethics rules by causing the evacuation of the Cannon House office building, stating that he failed to conduct himself, quote, in a manner that reflects credibility on the House, end quote. The House Ethics Committee will now investigate the matter. FACT, a non-governmental entity, so it's not a government entity, filed a complaint with the Office of Congressional Ethics. While they lack the authority to impose penalties, they can submit complaints and investigatory results to the House Committee on Ethics for consideration. The committee can take actions such as censure, reprimand, letter of reproval, or letter of reprimand, but their options are limited. The article suggests that Bowman's actions could potentially have legal consequences, as pulling a false fire alarm in the District of Columbia is a misdemeanor punishable by a fine and or jail time. The author also speculates about the seriousness of Bowman's actions, suggesting that he may have been obstructing an official proceeding by delaying a vote in Congress. It also mentions a resolution introduced by Republicans to censure Representative Rashida Tlaib over her actions related to the Palestinian flag and a response to terror attacks in Israel. Okay.
So obviously the reason that I mentioned this in our chat and everything is how many times men's rights speakers and men's rights protests, men's rights meetings, meetups, and stuff like that, has faced this kind of like fake emergency. Feminists will make up a fake emergency. They'll pull a fire alarm. They'll call in a bomb threat. They'll call the police and SWAT people and so on, to try to get us shut down, shut up, and kept from conversing with each other. And it's interesting, that there's this huge amount of moral outrage over this, and there should be. But when we've talked about it in the past, the answer is like, it's no big deal. All you had to do is leave the building for a few minutes and then you come back in. So what? Well, the reason that it's a crime, and it's not just a crime in that area. If you pull a fire alarm, you can get in loads of trouble all over the country, any place that you do it. Even if you're a little kid, I was learning to read. This was before I was actually in school. But I was learning to read from being read to as a child. And so I was with my parents at a university where my dad had a photo show. He had all his images up, and mom was attending to it, and dad had taken my brother and me to see the university's band, their symphonic band, play a concert, and it was too loud for me. So I was headed back to where mom was, right? We'd been reading Alice in Wonderland, and I see this thing on the wall that says pull down. The only text I can read on it is pull down. The only reason I didn't get in trouble for setting off the fire alarm was because I was like 4. That's an appropriate age to learn that lesson the wrong way. If somebody hasn't already said to you, don't touch this if it's not an emergency, right? But we have adults all over the country acting like a 4-year-old. And of course, from an adult height, an adult perspective, you can see above the pull down where it says, in case of fire. Well, what's the first thing that he did when he got caught? He lied. I didn't know what that was for. Fire alarms are clearly marked. And what happens when feminists get caught? We don't know who did it. We don't know which one did it. We don't even know if it was one of us or one of them. Bullshit. The people having the event didn't get it shut down by calling in a fire alarm or pulling a fire alarm or calling in a bomb threat. No, it's you guys. It's feminists. It's the people in the progressive movement. It's the people who are on whatever the wrong side of a political issue is, that realize that they are not just in the unpopular end of it, but being stopped because what they want is wrong. And they can't just argue their case because they don't have a case to argue. And they know they don't have a case to argue. They know what they want is wrong. They know what they're demanding is wrong. And the only thing they can do is stuff like pulling a fire alarm, calling in a bomb threat, swatting you, or otherwise exploiting the system in a manner it was not meant to be used in order to shut you up and shut you down. And the main difference I'm seeing here is that, because of his position, and probably because of his gender, he's being held slightly accountable. They're going to tell him that it was bad. They're not going to do anything for him, or to him for it, but they're going to at least say, now, don't do that again, which is pitiful, but it's more than feminists ever get out of it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Pardon my cynicism, but if the only thing being conducted is an investigation, or just talk of an investigation, then I fail to see how anything's going to come from it. When political bodies speak of doing something but haven't actually done anything, you can bet the farm they're never going to actually do anything. It's like Kevin McCarthy's idea of justice. We're seriously thinking of some kind of impeachment. Oh yeah, when? Well, first we're going to conduct an investigation. Okay, when? soon, at some point between now and the end of time, we might consider pondering the concept of pontificating over the prospect of seriously excogitating with regard to an examination of the possibility of a hypothetical impeachment somewhere down the line. Yeah, in other words, you're not going to do shit other than expel enough hot air to fill your balloon and slowly float away into the good night. And it's the same with this. Never mind that in the unlikely event of an investigation successfully determining foul play, nothing's going to happen except a slap on the wrist and a strongly worded letter saying, "You naughty boy, you shouldn't have done that. We would appreciate it very much if you didn't do it again, please." And then he does it again anyway, and you still can't do shit. Never mind any of that. Even if there is an investigation, it'll only get as far as asking Jamal Bowman, "Why did you pull the fire alarm?" And what's he going to say? He's not going to say, "All right, you got me. I was deliberately obstructing capital proceedings to suit my own partisan demands." Is he? No, he's going to carry on with the same line he's been going with so far. "I thought it was a door." Honest, Governor, I thought it was an ordinary door with an ordinary remote mechanism for unlocking that door. And it was the only door I could find that could possibly lead me out of the building, despite having obviously walked in through a different door. Video footage, schmidio footage. You can't prove anything. So what if the fire alarm was clearly labeled as a fire alarm? It's racist of you to assume that everyone can read English. And it would also be racist of you to question whether or not I could read English. So don't even go there, or I'll counter-investigate you. And when Democrats investigate you, that means you're going to jail for 2 years without trial. Your best, back off, bitch, walk away. Yeah, that's what I thought. And it'll work. Democrats and their allies are actually above the law. They cannot be brought to justice unless they actually confess explicitly to their crimes, and they never will, because they don't have to. Biden's going to keep lying and denying everything, even when it's proven beyond reasonable doubt, and he's going to keep stoking wars across the world and going, "Look over there, look at the shiny thing, everyone." And Jamal Bowman, despite all the evidence, is just going to keep lying. He's going to keep pretending to be a well-meaning retard. Don't get me wrong, he's clearly a massive retard, but he's a nefariously privileged retard. He's retarded enough to think he can pull a fire alarm and get away with it, and he's nefariously privileged enough to indeed get away with it. And that's the Democrat Party in a nutshell. Retards who do the world's most retarded shit and never stop doing it because they never face any consequences. Come to think of it, that's almost all world leaders in a nutshell. This whole system is fucked, people. Never mind temporarily suspending Congress. We need the whole system gutted from the inside and replaced with an absolute monarchy, wherein the people retain the right to brutally assassinate the monarch if he or she steps out of line. Actually, just he. Just he. Scrap the she part. Women are the Democrat politicians of the human race. They represent a deficit of accountability to which the system is incapable of adjusting. Kings, ladies and gentlemen, we need to return to the divine right of kings and the divine right of the people to cut that dude's head off when they see fit. Mutual fear between the rulers and the ruled. That's what we need, not a ruling class that fears nothing and a ruled class conditioned to fear everything. Deus motherfucking Vault.
Yep.
I got one thing to add here real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Which should erase any shred of doubt left in even the most skeptical of minds about this situation. There's one type of person I would expect to be very knowledgeable when it comes to fire alarms. Mm-hmm. And that is a school teacher.
Yeah, right.
There's one person I would expect to be even more knowledgeable about that. That subject again being fire alarms. A school principal. And that is something that Mr. Fire Alarm here was for a decade. He was a principal in a school in New York for 10 years. Bull fucking shit. You don't know how a fire alarm works. And this also means he had to have known what the penalty for one of these kids pulling a fire alarm was. I imagine there's a non-zero chance that he probably had to punish someone for that in the past. 10 years, I mean, the law of averages says there's got to be at least one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let that remove any possible iota of doubt that this guy didn't know how a door worked. I thought that switch opened the door. Derp derp.
Yeah. Well, it is good that Hannah pointed out how these are tactics used by feminists and basically like any activist group that wants to shut down discussion. You know, what this got me thinking about, because I'm looking at, like, I don't watch a lot of congressional discussions because it's cringe. But I did watch some old debates and discussions from like old, you know, assemblies of Congress and presidential debates from like the 60s and the 50s. And holy shit, were they sophisticated. And they were probably criticized too for being a little, you know, like just being so uncouth or impolite at the time. But by today's standards, I mean, look at what we have now. I'm just saying, like, the discourse has collapsed. It is not good. And I don't know if people can see that. I mean, when you have okay, people in political office acting like high school students and pulling alarms to end discussion. I mean, what is going on? I blame education. I'm all for what Vivek Ramaswamy has been saying. I saw him do an extended discussion with Crowder. I've watched him around, and he's talking about, just eliminating the Department of Education, eliminating the IRS, eliminating the FBI and the CIA. Yes, it's gotta go. It's gotta go. To quote Mia Khalifa, you gotta go. You gotta go. So that's my thought on it. So that was it. I think that Hannah makes a good point about the fire alarm thing. It is important to make that comparison. So we know this is like the stuff that was, that we used to deal with, like when we try to hold talks. I remember there was a bomb threat called at a meetup we did in Australia in 2017. There was a bomb threat called on a Gamergate meetup, right?
The first ICMI in 2014.
The first ICMI
had to change venues.
Yep.
Last minute because of a bomb threat.
Yep. And they tried to do it at the ICMI 2019. I remember.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Take down MRAs, and a bunch of Twitter feminists that were just absolutely ass mad that we were even hosting a conference were contacting the hotel, and they were telling them, do you know that you have white supremacists there and all this? And they would go in, and the people from the hotel would come down and look to see if there were any white hoods, and you just saw like a bunch of people from all over the world, Indians, blacks, Latinos, white people, whatever, Asians. There was a guy from Japan, barely spoke English, that was there. And they were like, is this a white supremacist meetup? So there was one guy with a MAGA hat.
The most inclusive white supremacists.
Yeah.
What was really funny was Take Down MRAs tried real hard to get some of the big names in the smallest low tier of feminist journalism, like the amateur ones, and it, like maybe the next tier up. He messaged publicly. He added oh god, I can't think of her name, but also Jessica Valenti, like Penny something, or I can't think of her last name.
Oh, is it Lori Penny? Lori Penny.
Lori Penny. And Jessica Valenti, and another lady that is like the real feminists wouldn't know her, but Gamergate would. And I was just like, I was waiting for us to get flamed by feminists, and nothing happened at all. They didn't answer him. They didn't know who he was. They didn't give a rat's ass about what was going on. Nothing. Yeah. Obviously, they really, the guy's not as connected as he thinks he is. Mm-hmm. And they really didn't care that much about us. They probably, if they knew that establishment media would be talking about the things we were talking about just a few years ago today, they might have cared. But I really don't think that that he could have gotten their attention no matter what he did. Like, the guy could walk out into the middle of the street, set himself on fire, and set off a couple of air horns in two different directions, and nobody would notice. Yeah. He's just not that exciting.
And that would be a time to pull the fire alarm.
Yeah. That would be an
full circle.
Well, you just get get a fire extinguisher and freeze him out.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I guess that's it. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I got a super chow from Zeranx. Thank you, Zeranx. He gives us $5. Hold on a second. I'm in the wrong thing. And he says for $5, bear in mind, Bowman was a principal of a school. I think he helped create for at least 10 years, if not more. His role as principal would entail building safety measures. The fact that he defaulted to a childlike attempt at an excuse tells me he knows what he did and why. He should be forced out, tried, sentenced, and serve at least the same number of years he served as principal for a school, and be told that's exactly why he's been given that time, and there's no shortening it for good behavior. Yeah, I agree. It probably won't happen. He'll probably get a slap. He'll get a slap on the wrist, if that. And that's it. They'll finger wag him at the most, I think. But
just like everything else that our politicians do. Just to remind you guys, this is the body of government that had a slush fund for paying off victims of sexual harassment and false accusers, that accused congressmen of harassing them. There was a slush fund. There was an actual paid for by your tax dollars. Anybody makes an allegation, we pay them off fund for these guys.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you, Zarinx, for the super chow. Appreciate it so much. Let us move on to the next story. I have a fourth one if we have time. I think we could, because we're getting through these kind of quick, and I only picked 3. I think 3 is a good number. I mean, depending on what's going on. It's kind of a slow news week for me. So anyway, let us know what you guys think about that one in the comments. I look forward to your thoughts. And also be sure to go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a tip and give us your thoughts on, whatever will get more of the benefit of your contribution if you use Just the Tip as opposed to YouTube. YouTube takes a big chunk. Or you could Rumble Gang shout out. You could go to Rumble and send us a Rumble rant as well. For those of you guys in the Rumble chat, I do have a couple of extra gifts that I have put in, and Rumble Chan is one of them. So, you can throw some Rumble Chans in there. I like the mascot. I want to continue the branding, and I like Rumble. So Rumble Chan's in the Rumble chat. Okay, anyway.
Rumble Gang, where you at?
Yeah, Rumble Gang, where you at? All right, last story, or at least maybe the last story. Attitude, a gay British lifestyle magazine. Oh, this is Mike J. I'm sorry, I'm reading your thing, Mike. I'm sorry. I'm going to give it back to you. No.
I was going to let you go and do it.
No, it's okay. You do it.
Okay, we can compromise Hannah. Can you do a good Dylan Mulvaney impression?
I don't know if Hannah should be doing it. How about Dr. Ranamakham?
Yeah. This is somebody I have deliberately ignored. I don't know how this person talks.
Maybe you're a better person for that. Anyway, so Attitude, a gay British lifestyle magazine, has crowned a TikTok person Dylan Mulvaney Woman of the Year. Taking to social media, Mulvaney responded to the news, quote, "Knowing that my community sees me this way and acknowledges my womanhood is all I need to keep going. I'm so honored to be here with you all tonight, and some see me as the Woman of the Year, some see me as a Woman of the Year, as I only publicly came out 560 days ago. Some people don't see me as a woman at all, which is why receiving this honor from a queer publication like Attitude means so much more to me. No matter how hard I try, or what I wear, or what I say, or what surgeries I get, I will never reach an acceptable version of womanhood by those hateful people's standards. But as long as I have the queer community that sees me for my truth, I'm gonna be okay, end quote. It should be noted that Attitude bills itself as a magazine for homosexual men and describes its average reader as, quote, a gay male professional typically in his 20s or 30s, end quote. They have also never featured a Woman of the Year award since their magazine first debuted in 1994.
So, Dylan, mate, you'll notice there aren't any women's magazines naming you Woman of the Year. That'll be because women's magazines are in the business of catering to women. What might it suggest to you that you are being praised by what you call your community, and a magazine by your community that caters to gay men? I think they might be trolling you, Dylan. I mean, probably not, but I like to think it, so I'm going to say it as though I do think it. In the unlikely event that this or any gay men's magazine is based enough to pull off this kind of 4D chess move, I think this might be them elaborating that they know full well that what you are, Dylan, is a gay man. That's exactly what you were 561 days prior, by your own admission and by anyone with a semblance of functioning gaydar. But it's not progressive enough just to be a gay man, is it? By progressive, I do, of course, mean oikophobic, but for the sake of conversation, let's examine the contents of the paradigm. Some people are just different. They don't necessarily want to be different, but they are, and they embrace it. And if their atypicality becomes normalized, they go, oh, cool, I'm no longer considered abnormal. I guess that's jolly helpful. I'll go ahead and live my life as a normal person like I am and like I always wanted to. But some people are not just incidentally different for the sake of being themselves. Some people are deliberately different for the sake of being different. And if their difference becomes normalized, they become rather perturbed and listless. They no longer feel special. They no longer get awards for doing nothing other than identifying as something stunning and brave. Does anyone really think it's a coincidence that large amounts of people, relatively large amounts of people, have quote unquote come out as transgender in the years since homosexuality has been normalized, or since queerness has been normalized, whatever that even means? It's because of this phenomenon. Some people get addicted to being different, effortlessly different. And whenever they no longer are, they will move on to whatever identity is not yet normalized. And the great tragedy is that they have to keep going no matter what. Now that transsexuality is in the process of being normalized, the troons are very much riding that wave as far as it can take them. But what happens when it's fully normalized and transsexuality becomes just another mundane, everyday thing? They'll move on to something else. What do you suppose that will be? I mean, I dread to think. It's a partly rhetorical question, but I have a horrible idea that I can predict where we go next. It'll be the next sexual taboo, something that at this point is still considered unforgivable and even criminal. The top two candidates, at least as far as the spread bet can predict, are bestiality and, well, I think you'll know what the other one is. I can only hope bestiality comes first and society realizes the error of its ways and reverses course before we get to the other one. So what about yourself, Dylan? Where do you go from here? When everyone's bored of troons, how are you going to get your next award? How are you going to stay in the limelight of sexual degeneracy being normalized by the Overton window? How are you going to stay ahead of the curve? Please, for the love of God, Dylan, don't fuck a child. Just fuck a horse or something.
Just fuck off.
Well, I got a couple things to say about this. One is, Dylan, put her on the cover of everything. Make her Women of the Year everywhere. Do it. Just don't stop at Attitude. Put her on fucking People magazine. Put her on Life. Make her Woman of the Year, Life magazine. Wherever they do Woman of the Year, do it. I say do it. Great. You feminists created this. They set this table up. They put all the playing pieces out there. Now you have to play the game. This is what you're going to get. So I'm all for it. Dylan Mulvaney for basically any honorific that we can muster that does not involve her having government power. I'm okay with anything else. Like, honorary fucking CEO of makeup. I don't care. Like, put her on the cover of everything. Put her on Dove. Give her a sponsorship. Anything that women occupy, give it to Dylan Mulvaney. That's what I'm saying. All of the spaces that women run, give that to her. Make her the face of it all. Because this is what intersectionals asked for, so that the Anna Kasparians and the J.K. Rowlings will see what they have, what the Frankenstein monster that they created has done. Now, having said that, I agree with Mike in the long run. I think this is not healthy. I think that it is a cycle without an end, and because I've looked into queer theory, and a lot of people think queerness just means gay, but it's not. Queerness is a political stance that simply means, well, in short, it's an identity without an essence, but what it ultimately means is anything that's normal, I have to do the opposite. So it's basically just inverting everything. So like, are people normally men and women? I'm going to do something else. And then what the non-binary thing came out after trans identity, because trans identity was still working within a binary, right? Men become women, women become men. So now we got to do something else. Oh, I know. I'll be non-binary. I'll be asexual. I'll be whatever. All the bullshit neo-pronouns
it's funny you say that,
made up.
Brian.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly how Dylan's transformation went.
Yeah, exactly.
You can go trace this all on the TikTok.
Yep. And yeah, exactly. Gay, then trans, then non-binary, whatever. What?
I think the non-binary part came first.
No, well, he did a video where he was talking about how he spoke to his father and went through the stages, and I think non-binary came after trans, but I could be wrong. You might be right, but it doesn't matter.
The thing is, I don't remember. This is the weird part that I think there's a missing link. I don't remember Dylan ever saying he was trans.
No,
I just remember him saying like, "Oh, I'm starting my exploration of womanhood," and then did all these dumb little skits like, "Oh, it's so hard to hike as a girl. Why it's so hard to wear heels."
Yeah, and also the other thing
and it's
too
like
is that
none of that suggested trans. It was just like, "Oh, you're trying to be a woman." That's really.
But at the same time, he's not fooling anyone, and he knows he's not fooling anyone.
Right, he wants you to know that that this is a game, but it's a game of playing with these inversions of identity. And ultimately, and I said this before too, all of this LGBTQ stuff, all of these genders, all of these identities are simply moving away from men. I mean, towards femininity to most degrees. And with women, it's sort of like some weird caricature minstrel version of a man. Like, I don't know if you've seen how trans men present, but they go like, it's so extreme, like they grow massive beards and they wear the ball caps and like the wraparound stuff. They try to make themselves look like what they think men look like, and their idea of what men look like is very douchebaggy. Like, it's a douchebaggy minstrel show stereotype. And of course, the only people who end up getting criticized for this are the trans women or the queer men who are presenting as women, because the women don't like it. Men generally don't care. So, like if a trans man goes into a man's bathroom, men don't care. It doesn't mean they shouldn't, but in general, it doesn't bother them. So you can see how this is sort of expressing itself, but ultimately, it is anti-male, but it starts there, but it has to eventually push back on female identity too, because queerness is about opposing all things that are normal. It is an identity without an essence. It is the opposite of whatever is normal. And so, as Mike said, as things become normalized, they have to find something else to rebel against, and it only becomes more and more extreme. So if we want to sort of like see a return to sanity, You kind of have to let this thing run its course. That's why I say, hey, put Dylan Mulvaney, make that person Woman of the Year everywhere. Put billboards everywhere. Watch the women, especially the feminist women, which is basically all women. Watch them go crazy and demand that this stop. And that's the only way. And I say this too, fully knowing that, and I've said this before, and some people think this is a hot take, but I don't think it's untrue. There's a lot of misandry in the trans community. A lot of misandry. But there are men who want to become women because they hate themselves as they are. And there are women who want to become men because they want to compete with those men in some way. Or they think that it will benefit them. Do you remember that video of the trans man that was crying, talking about how lonely it is to be a man? But then he also had to, but he also had to add the caveat that, I understand that I have male privilege, and I understand that cis men are still, evil, dominant, rapey, assaulty, predatory guys, or whatever it was he said.
Yep.
But my case is special. And it's like, so you hate men. Why did you, and this is what I'm saying, there's a lot of misandry in this population, and I don't think that it's wrong of me to say, and if you think I'm wrong, then tell me, because I think it's very common. And so, this is like something else that I think that this queer theory comes in part because it's sort of like part of a longer, let's say, evolutionary thread that you can trace back. And it starts from misandry, because when you don't, you have a problem with the male sex, then as a man, you're going to try to change things. You might just be a Will Smith simp, or you might go Dylan Mulvaney and just change. Or if you're a woman, because you're a victim from birth, right? You're going to be like, well, I don't want to be a victim, so I'm going to become a man, or you're going to become a feminist, which is, but neither of them are men, because you're either a trans man, which is like some weird stereotype, like a two-dimensional representation, or you're a feminist, you just hate men. But you want to be them.
You've got a couple of things going on there. There is, obviously, there's the misandry. There's the fact that, I can, as a woman, I can wear anything from high heels and a dress to cargo pants and a tank top and be viewed as feminine, right? Even if I completely were to dress in what would be considered drag, if a guy did the opposite sex equivalent, I could still be considered feminine by doing that. I don't have to change genders to have that kind of broad spectrum of different things I can do. And that's historically been true. It's historically been for at least women who are not of the upper financial classes. Like, we've been able to do whatever we wanted in terms of how we dressed within the scope of our financial means. And people will be like, well, that's just a feminine way of doing that. It's a feminine way of wearing pants. It's a feminine way of wearing cargo pants. It's a feminine way of using a hammer. It's a feminine way of fixing a car. And it'll even be called sexy, right? But the minute a man steps one toe over the line between masculine and feminine, he must be gay, he must be trans, he must be this, he must be that. He's unacceptable, he's not masculine enough, something's weird about him, don't let him be alone with your children. So for years and years after the idea of transgenderism was created, medically created, that was mostly a male thing. It was mostly men wanting to escape the confines of the social attitude around masculinity. I mean, we had to invent a word, metrosexual, for guys to even want to look nice when they were not at work, right? So you have that. You have society's misandric attitude toward men having any fashion sense, any consideration for themselves, any interest in their own aesthetics and their own popularity, and maybe not being rugged. And then at the same time, because there's been a backlash against that that sort of overzealous condemnation, that narrowing of the male gender role. There's been a backlash against normalcy. So you have this idea that men who are naturally rugged are somehow bad. You can't have two different types of men being good, right? So if it's okay for a man to be a little effeminate, then it must not be okay for a man to be very rugged, which is also bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's perfectly fine for some men to be totally rugged. Yeah, Derek, that's old. Metrosexual is old. I'm old too.
I remember it.
But the point being, we've picked on men about this shit for longer than any of us discussing this have been alive. Mm-hmm. Men cross-dressing is a way to escape being an old concept. Alfredo St. Jean mentioning Psycho. But the thing is, it's always been either limitations on men's roles or people trying to control, and by people I mean people who are politically feminist, trying to control men's roles. It's never been about controlling women. It's never been about helping or harming women. It's never been about helping men. It's always just been about control. Mm-hmm. When they come out and they say you can't have boundaries, you're not allowed to not want somebody because you find out that, that's not actually a biological woman. This person has a penis, right? Men are the ones being told that, right? Lesbians are the ones that are getting all up in arms about it, but it's men who are being told you can't say no just because she has a penis. Well, yeah, actually he can, and all of this is about controlling men. But at the same time, all of it's about controlling, the general population, separating parents from their children, taking away people's idea or ability, rather, to observe and form opinions on objective reality. You can't have objective reality if you're not allowed to differentiate between a biological man and a trans man, a biological woman and a trans woman. And especially if you have to reconcile gender is just a social construct and it's not real. But as soon as we have a benefit or a threat, the obligations and protections are going to be divided by biological sex. Mm-hmm. Right? So all of that. Yeah. So it's all about control, and it's all about messing with your head. Mm-hmm. And the reason that there are troons is to fuck with your head. Mm-hmm. And because there are people who, as soon as they see a set of rules that they can use to control the people around them, will exploit those rules. And that's what troons are. And it all caught in the middle of this. The tiny handful of people who have actually experienced gender dysphoria, and they've never had proper treatment for it because the medical community is all about how much money they can make from them instead. Yeah. And I really feel sad that all of this is happening around them. They're getting blamed for all of it. And they're never going to find their way and their real place in life. Yeah. Because of that. Well, they'll never get solid treatment in medicine. Mm-hmm. They'll never have somebody be honest with them in medicine. Mm-hmm. And they're never going to have somebody be honest with them in regard to law, policy, and how they fit into their communities. Yeah. Because all of this political shit has been built on a scaffolding of false stories about how their experiences are and how they live. Mm-hmm. And what their condition is and what can be done for them. And that's where we are. Yeah. All right, well, let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. And I don't have any more super chats or super chows or rumble rants, so I will tell you guys briefly the last little story. I didn't do a write-up on this, but I learned about it this morning. So, the Daily Wire has announced, speaking of the Daily Wire, they announced that they're going to be doing a live-action Snow White movie
And according to the Hollywood Reporter, this is to troll Disney. So it's going to star Brett Cooper, who is one of, I guess you could say, like the VTuber or YouTubers that make content for the Daily Wire. And there's been, this is what I'll say, okay? I think this is good because Disney should not have the monopoly on content. That's the only reason. I'm all for it. Now, it just so happens that Daily Wire has the money to do this. So go for it. But I think that what this should do, because I know there are people who are going to have opinions on Daily Wire and on their their folks and their views and all of that. But I think that we have to recognize that Disney is far, far worse. So, in my opinion, I think it's far, far worse. Now, does that mean you have to celebrate these people or give them your money or whatever? No. But I think that what we should do is let them fight and also support people who are creating original content. I learned, I don't know who exactly is doing it, but there are people who make original YouTube content, and they've been around forever. We know this, right? But there was one group, I have to look them up because I just learned about it this morning and I saw it very briefly. Like I said before, I was hanging out with my mother-in-law and Lindsay and JoJo, so I didn't really stick to me, but I guess they're doing Robin Hood. And that is also, it's the same thing. So there's a response coming from smaller sort of studios, whether that's the Daily Wire, whether that's Angel Studios, whether that's even like bigger ones. Like I started watching the new Mission Impossible, very fun movie. Tom Cruise kicking ass. He just made a fun movie. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm enjoying myself so far. And I think that this is good. Overall, I think it's a good thing. So you say what you want about it, whatever, it's fine, but more content is better, because if the thing is that if all there is what Disney puts out there, or like Warner Brothers or Paramount or whoever is basically part of mainstream Hollywood, then that's where people are going to go, because that's all that's available. So we have to at least point them in the direction of something else, because maybe we'll get like something good out of that. And I think that this is a good thing, and I'm glad that they're doing it. I don't know that I'll watch it, but I'm glad they're doing it. So there you go.
Well, I mean, what do we always say? We always say, if you don't like the way that stories are being told, that things are being done, make your own stuff. We say it to the left, we say it to the right. Well, you got Daily Wire doing it. Hopefully, it'll inspire other people to do the same thing.
That's exactly my point. Yeah.
Yeah. If only the woke assholes could figure that out too. Like, and Snow White isn't somebody's special. It
doesn't belong to anyone. It's a grim fairy tale.
It's public domain. It's all the storytellings of Snow White that we know of today are probably way off from the original. So there you go. It's something that's perfectly good to mess around with. And I think they've done a bunch of other things. They've got other movies that they've made and everything.
And maybe this one won't be like, like the Disney Snow White, from what we're hearing, sounds like it's just going to throw all of that stuff out the window. There's not, the Prince Charming is not going to be important, and she's going to be a girl boss and all of that. And the Queen and Snow White can't be enemies because, they can't encourage women to be, antagonistic to each other. We have to maintain a sisterhood. It sounds like it's completely not that at all. Not the story as it was.
I think somebody needs to make a parody of Snow White, where as soon as she gets out of her stepmother, her wicked stepmother's house, she realizes, she's her own person. She can do what she wants. Go find herself a prince or anybody else, and get on with her life. And she doesn't have to exploit a bunch of men to get there. She can do it herself, and then be a supportive partner and all that, and just call it Snow What. Yeah, Snow What, I got kicked out of the castle. Snow What, I'm gonna go do my own
Snow
thing.
What?
But,
oh my god.
and just make fun of every aspect of the female princess fairy tale daydream and all of that. But who knows? Maybe somebody will, maybe somebody won't. But it'll be fun.
If someone did a version that was faithful to the Grimm Tales original, it would come across as a parody.
Yeah.
Probably.
Like if the evil queen, like as punishment for her evil deeds, was forced to put on red hot metal shoes and dance herself to death, like in the original Grim Tale, it would come across as an overly excessive, like macabre take on the thing. I don't think that's what Daily Wire's going to do. I would congratulate them if they did, but I don't know. They're probably going to do something watered down, just like the first Disney one.
Probably, yeah. I mean, they're probably going to do something more, like I said, traditional to the story, where, you know, she, like, if you watch the original Disney one, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I don't even know that Daily Wire is going to be able to do it, because it's sort of like a lot of stuff in there could not be made today. In terms of like the sort of wholesomeness of it, I think that's like gone. I don't know I don't even know if Daily Wire can do it, but maybe they'll at least go a little close. I feel like it's gonna be like a 90s, if there was a 90s rendition of like the Disney Renaissance or Silver Age version, it'll probably look like whatever they're gonna do. But I don't know, can't say, but I support this. I agree. If you don't like what Disney's doing, or Paramount is doing, or Warner Brothers, or whoever, the Weinstein Company, whatever it is, then yeah, make your own stuff. And the thing is, we live in the best time for that. We live in the absolute best time for people to do that. And I think that a lot of independent, like, people who make content for the internet, I mean, like, how many lightsaber battles can you find online that are way better than anything that Disney's put out since they bought Lucasfilm? I'm sure that there's tons. You guys can probably make some recommendations in the chat. Let us know what's a great fan-made, like, Star Wars property that you saw on YouTube or anywhere else. Make a recommendation. Tell us where to find it in the comments. But I'm gonna wrap it up here. We're gonna do the after show now. We're gonna look at this article from Zoe Williams, What Keeps Couples Warm in Winter, the battle over the thermostat. We'll see like exactly what it is we need to be educated on. So if you guys could please join us, I hope I'll see you in the patron show. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. Go to feedthebadger.com/justtip, send us a message after the show. I'll read it on the next show. And please, please, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.